Hey everybody, welcome back. It is episode 76 of the Alfie Whattam Tech Podcast. As always, we are of course sponsored by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're a UK software developer, get the job that you deserve now at WeLoveAlpha.com today. Or if you're an engineering manager looking to hire in Java or .NET or React or PHP or whatever your flavor of tech stack is, go to WeLoveAlpha.com to get the best UK engineers. On the podcast today, I'm joined by Jamie Stone. Jamie, thanks for joining us. Could you just give us a little bit of an intro, mate, into who you are and what your background is, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently Director of Engineering Operations at Tin & Carter. Tin & Carter is a global consultancy. Basically, our remit is to make the world better for everyone. We're a registered B Corp, and we really try and do all of our work with a planet and a people slant on it, as well as obviously we are on the stock exchange, so
Awesome.
have to make money as well. My day job, I'm responsible for the operations of our engineering department of about 150 to 200 engineers, back end, front end, QA, cloud. I got into that by previously being Director of Software Engineering, so managing a load of back end engineers. Before that, I was running tech teams, and before that, way back when, 6-7 years ago, I was .NET dev, .NET Java, JavaScript, polyglot for an agency. Well, no, sorry, for a software house.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I've been a dev, been paid to code PHP, JavaScript, .NET, Java, VBA, ASP.NET, all sorts.
Cool. So you've done the role of a hands-on dev, a team lead, a manager, scaling and running, operations at the moment. So it'd be good to get your perspective, mate, into what's happening in the world and understand. Obviously, you have quite a lot of enthusiasm around kind of the security element of things as well, which is kind of what I've got you on today to talk about from that angle on a couple of topics. So without further ado, we'll go in to see what's happening in the world of tech at the moment. So poor security might send work from home workers back to the office very soon. So smart devices could be putting businesses at risk. BlackBerry warns. So smart devices with poor security could end up forcing home workers back to the office if research from BlackBerry is to be believed. The new research from the company found that 8 in 10, so 79% of all UK businesses reportedly take no steps to secure their workers' home internet connections or provide software protection for domestic devices. And consumers aren't exactly prioritizing this either, despite 77% of smart devices in the home being purchased in the past 2 years. Less than a third, so 32% of British home workers who own a smart device said security was a top 3 factor in making these purchases. What do you make of all of this? It's interesting, right?
Where to start? I guess security of home devices is probably a good place to start. How insecure are they? I think it's a truism that the larger the company, the more mature that ecosystem where you bought it from, the more secure they will be. If you're just buying and I'm going to use this example, not out of the blue, if you're buying a baby camera off the internet and it's white labeled, or it's a brand you've never heard of, you have no guarantee of their security. Tended to talk at Manchester B-Sides 3-4 years ago, where they just showed how easy it was to hack into that. It had even without having they had the tech to hand, so they took it apart and they found it. Like, they took the EEPROM apart and they found all the basic passwords. They got onto the web browser that was on the box, and then put it back together again. And live, they were able to do things like play, rickroll us, live. But those sort of things, especially when you're looking at even the more modern day ones, if you're hooking into a Nest, or trying not to use a brand name, but if you're trying to hook into a doorbell camera on your phone, you've got an app that will connect to it. It'll connect to your router. It will then IP forward that traffic through to your camera. It's going to send it back to you, or it's going to go via a third-party server on the internet somewhere. you're trusting that company explicitly with that data, and you've basically given them keys to your network.
Yeah.
So unless you trust them, unless they're a big three, big four, you know, unless it's Amazon or Google or something that you know is going to be baking security in because they have to, because of the reputational damage,
Yeah.
you've got to be really careful with these things. There's a great example of I can't remember which camera it was, no, doorbell,
Yeah.
and you used to be able to just pop it off, turn it over, press the reset switch. It would
Okay.
attach itself to your phone's Wi-Fi hotspot,
Yeah.
and then you could change the password. And then so, yeah, security, it's not great on the devices. I would challenge the presumption that a person's work machine on a home network is unsafe, because that would presume that most people, say Windows or Mac devices, can easily be hacked from a home network. That's the same as saying you can't be going into a coffee shop, or you're vulnerable to a contractor in an office attacking a machine. Those machines are actually pretty safe. So yes, I think home networks are unsafe.
Yeah.
Are they attacking a person's work machine? I'm not sure I agree with that one.
Is there much a company watching this can do? Because apart from recalling all of their remote workers, which is unlikely given it's 2022 and most developers don't want jobs at the moment where they have to be in an office every day. Apart from that, what is there any obvious solutions?
You've just got to look at the attack vectors. So patch the machines, patch the home machines, make sure they're fully firewalled, by which I mean the machines you're giving your remote workers to work with, and make sure they're fully firewalled, make sure they're fully patched. They should be safe. You could probably implement policies that say you're not allowed to access admin consoles for home devices. You could probably even lock that down if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's possible to lock down people's stuff. You know, it's in a way it's the same as saying if you drive to work, you have to have valid insurance. It has to have a consumer thing on it. So it has to have commuting on your insurance. You have to have tax. You have to have a license to drive. And companies will ask you, a lot of companies that allow people to drive will ask you to self-certify that. And if you don't, then it's a disciplinary offence. It could be the same for home networks, for home things. Do you have, are you using like a standard provided modem, broadband modem? Are you running antivirus on your home machines? But yeah, it's tough because anything can plug and play now on a home network.
Yeah, I get a little bit paranoid with this sort of thing, Jamie, to the point where I will refuse to check my crypto or my bank balance if I'm in an airport or a coffee shop and that sort of thing. Is that too much, or is that level of paranoia maybe a little bit helpful sometimes?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. That, I mean, it's considerably less hackable than it used to be.
Yeah.
So when we had the rise of the free SSL certs from Let's Encrypt, they basically changed the dynamic from, I think it was, I don't know, 70% unencrypted to now 70% encrypted websites on the web. So, and that's providing end-to-end encryption from your laptop to that endpoint. So unless somebody's got on your laptop, those should be secure. Obviously, if somebody's got on your laptop, all bets are off because they can change the SSL certs and all sorts.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
One other thing I would say: companies encourage VPN use, and that's probably. However, a certain company was recently hacked last week via a social engineering attack.
Yes, big one in the
where the password was given to the hacker, who then used that to get onto the company VPN, and then escalated from there. So VPNs aren't a catch-all on their own. You have to have security in depth across the board.
Absolutely. Speaking of, I suppose, people being hacked and that sort of thing, a mass amount of WordPress sites have just been hijacked by a zero-day hiding in a popular plugin. So 280,000 were potentially dangers of this serious security flaw. So a zero-day vulnerability found in a premium WordPress plugin is being actively exploited in the wild, researchers are saying. urging its users to remove it from their websites until a patch is released. So the Workday security plugin makers WordFence uncovered a flaw in WP Gateway, a premium plugin helping admins manage other WordPress plugins and themes from a single dashboard. So if you have a WordPress site, now is a good time to see if you're potentially part of this issue. But what do you make of that, Jamie? That seems like a lot of people.
It doesn't surprise me in the slightest. The numbers are big for a plugin, but actually the numbers are probably a tenth of what they used to be when WordPress core used to get hacked on a monthly basis about 5-10 years ago. I have a friend who runs a small business, and she was hacked by a drive-by exploit of someone literally scanning Google for WordPress sites, loading them all into their exploit tool, and then exploiting a 0-day. I think it was like a 3 or 4 days post. But she was on she was on a downloaded version of WordPress. It wasn't run by WordPress, so the web designer that built her site hadn't updated it to the latest version, and hence she got caught in that. And her site, fortunately for her, site was just defaced. It wasn't any kind of anything more serious than that. I guess my advice to small businesses would be, it wouldn't be don't use WordPress. It's a really simple and easy tool. Sure. A lot of people out there that don't have any coding knowledge, who can use WordPress to create their sites. They can get really relatively cheap sites from designers using WordPress. It's free software, but you get what you pay for, don't you? Especially if you're using plugins. My advice would probably don't use a plugin which effectively needs the keys to the kingdom. Yeah. Which that one looks like it would. I haven't invested in the plugin, but if it's actively managing other themes, then that's the kind of thing that would need admin access for WordPress. So I would suspect it's the if it's been hacked and you can get the creds out of it, which is probably what they've done. Yeah, you're asking for trouble. Some of the other plugins, there's ones that will load in, I don't know, Twitter, or they'll load in WooCommerce or stuff like that. Those ones don't typically need as much privileges across the whole of WordPress, so they should be theoretically safer. It's about, I guess, managing in depth. Don't put something on there that's gonna do a lot of damage if it gets hacked. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. I wouldn't say don't use plugins, because that's 50% of the ecosystem. Yeah. No, it's such a tricky one in the respect that if it's hiding on an already popular plugin, then that element of trust it's there, and you don't know what you're downloading if something else is hiding inside, right? Apart from because you have to download plugins if you're using WordPress, is there much people can be doing apart from that, or is it getting too advanced to the point where it's almost this is it. It's that kind of perfect storm of low tech level to run it. Yes. And more to the point, this plugin looks like it's simplifying the back end system. So you would expect their target market to again be people who've only hit a certain tech threshold. Yeah. Are those people going to be watching the CV databases? No, of course they're not. Are they even going to be having? I'm sure there are. I think there are a couple of newsletters out there that will send you updates and stuff like that if WordPress gets hacked or the plugins get hacked. Will they even be doing that? No, probably not. Blind faith, I guess, is what we're looking at here. And until they've been hacked, it's very hard for them to then realize what the danger is of using that ecosystem, because obviously WordPress is in their interests that people, I guess, aren't as aware of how dangerous the ecosystem could be. Yeah, I suppose one thing that we could be doing to I must avoid being in this situation is just being a little bit more careful of, I suppose, login behaviors and sharing passwords, and that's kind of the theme of the next story, really, which is around nearly half of employees at the moment admitting to risky online behavior to avoid the hassle of logging in. So a lot of workers are sharing passwords, they're ignoring the security updates. A new study from 1Password, which is a password aggregator where you can save all your passwords on one platform. They've detailed a number of dangerous habits which many workers have adopted, which is putting their companies at risk. So the password manager
company survey was designed to expose a term that the company calls login fatigue, which is reported to take on toll of productivity, security, and mental health. So 2,000 North American participants took part. 44, almost 0.5%, claimed that logging in and out of apps at work either has a negative effect on their mood or their productivity. And in response to this, 43% of the respondents admitted to dangerous online behaviors, such as sharing login details or abandoning tasks and doing all other kinds of risky behavior. What do you make of that, Jamie?
Yeah, again, no surprise there at all, really. We've recently introduced password. I'm trying to remember what they're called. Single login, basically across a lot of our platforms.
Yes.
And some of those were set to log out after, I think, 30 minutes of inactivity. And if you look at the usage patterns of some of the apps that we were using, 30 minutes wasn't enough, and it was irritating a lot of people. We've actually, I think, we pushed that up now to be a longer time period for those apps in particular. So I can totally see it. I mean, long time ago, I was a technical support person before I was a dev, before any of that. At a fairly large shoe manufacturer's headquarters in the UK. And the level of password misuse, even back then, was atrocious. You really common to see them stick to a screen, really common to have really just poor hygiene. So I think we've come a long way since then. And I think our attack vectors have changed, especially as now we're remote, a lot more. Weirdly, as it seems, actually sticking a complex password to your laptop on a post-it, whilst I couldn't recommend it, is actually more secure than having a really simple password that you haven't stuck, because who's going to see it on your laptop if it's for an internal? So it's a weird one in terms of that. I mean, it really comes down to the company IT teams. It comes down to the company security teams to work with their users to find that medium, and it's always a push and pull between use, like ease of use and depth of security. You can make something incredibly hard to crack, but it's also incredibly hard to log in and use, and that's what this article is saying. Or you can make something really easy and simple to get into, but it's really easy and simple to get into, so you've obviously got a push pull on the security there as well. I guess it comes down to value and risk, and hopefully those companies, and it's hard to say really when you only see a broad percentage, the larger companies that are there will have security officers, they will have CISOs who should be looking, and certainly we do internally, who should be looking at business value to business risk on things like password reuse, password length, forcing people to have independent ones, stopping golden password reuse, those kind of things. 44% seems high, but actually maybe not that high when you think they're looking at annoyances, aren't they, in that figure? It's not just people that have broken protocol.
I feel like a year ago I did an audit on all of my passwords, and I had like over 100. 99% of them were the same password with a number 1 or a number 2 on the end and a different special character. It didn't seem very secure, so I did move over to one of the password managing platforms, and every password I've got is, I don't even remember any of them because they're all a combination of strings and numbers and letters, and I didn't really remember one password which gives me access to all of them. A little bit risky, but I suppose knowing one that I'm never going to tell anybody unless I'm in a hostage situation, I feel like pretty safe.
I mean, the risk really is to do with nothing to do with you there. The risk there for you is that the platform that you've used has a vulnerability, and that somebody is able to utilize and access the vulnerability. So maybe they're saving, I don't know, a hash of yours and using that to pass it through, and then they, maybe it's in the RAM and someone's going to put something on your machine that's going to start using the like those shunt attacks where they're pushing data around the RAM. They can pick your hash up, they can feed it into whichever password manager you're using. This is the kind of level of complexity that people would be using to attack those password managers.
Mm.
And I think it's important to note as well, and we say this when we look at securing companies, and we look at, again, the company that was hacked last week,
Yeah.
the potential value of, and we see this in the ransomware attacks, especially the potential value of a successful ransomware attack could be in the millions.
Mm.
So if you think you have a payoff of $1 million and you have a team of, say, 5 developers working full time, just looking for a vulnerability, and they do that for 6 months, you're still coming out well on top.
Oh, it could be a big payday if you.
Yeah, exactly. So there are companies set up around the world that looking legitimate, not legitimate, specifically set up to be hack companies. So that's the kind of the competitive nature which we're up against, really, is in corporate world.
Yeah, the level
and in the other rest of them as well. So
the complexity is just getting on another scale. I was speaking to a Web3 expert on the podcast the other day, and we did a piece on how the biggest crypto sites in the world, like Coinbase and whatnot, if you Google those now, fake versions of those websites will come up before the actual ones. With the fake, it looks exactly the same. You go on it, but after you've entered your login details, they've got your coins, so they'll log in on the actual platform and take everything that you've got. So yeah, it's getting more and more complex, isn't it? Every day that goes by.
yeah, it's an interesting attack. That, I mean, it's quite a common attack, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a revised SEO injected phishing attack, isn't it? Proper going old school, really, just making it look similar enough to. I mean, you still see it coming out on the emails. I mean, my phone is now clever enough to detect them when I get a text message from, I don't know, Every or whoever the delivery people are. I'll log in here, and
yeah.
So yeah, it's an arms race, isn't it? Where we're constantly in it, and we'll always be in it. And that I think is the key thing there. It will never reach a point where we're secure.
Yeah.
It's always a point of, are you secure enough? And one of the things when I do internal security training, I do application security training, is as I try and make that point, the apps you build can never be 100% secure. What we're actually looking for is, are they secure enough? You know, we're sure we have everything. Everything has to pass a pen test, but above and beyond that, if someone came to your app and they tried all the basic attacks, are you a low-hanging fruit? Is there anything really obvious they can do? No, probably they're going to move on and try someone else.
Yeah. Would hackers like this typically go for the small, medium-sized companies, or is it more the big fish that they tend to go after?
Well, that's an interesting question. So we've seen in the industry supply chain attacks. So multiple supply chain attacks. There's the classic one nowadays, which is NPM and stuff like that, where people get friendly with the owner of a quite a slow moving, shall we say, package, which is popular.
Yeah.
They maybe put a few fixes in. They can be working on this for up to a year. They'll get to the point where they say, "Oh, actually, yeah, you may, you want to do a release. I've done all these fixes. You haven't got time. I can do it for you. Just give me release permissions," and then bam, they'll inject Bitcoin miners up to like 300,000 sites. But what we also see is, and I think it was, I know there was a hack on Rockstar, wasn't there? Rockstar Games, I think, announced yesterday. I don't know anything about the details, so I'm not assuming it's that.
This but we've seen GTA 6 leak.
Yeah, the GTA 6. Yeah. So we've seen similar attacks where they'll have gone in, let's say, via an advertising company. So this is an interesting attack, which you might. So we have some fairly large multinational companies, and we've highlighted issues using shared code bases in the past. And I'm thinking, for instance, here GA, GTM, that kind of analytics tracking, and that's fine in itself. But you can make GTM insert arbitrary code if you want. Again, fine in itself if you have good access control. However, where the supply line hacking comes in is, let's say they employed a digital marketer, 5 people, bespoke digital marketer to a particular thing. They gave them GTM access. These people probably haven't got the same levels of security detail. Suddenly you've got to weigh into these large manufacturers, these large people's code bases via a side attack. And I think that's that's kind of almost like a jackpot for the hackers, because it's a nice, easy way in. So yeah, I don't think I think the big boys,
Mhm.
there are ways in, and I'm trying to remember who it was got hacked last year via the Log4j, and that was purely because they were running Java on the front end of their website, and they got
Okay.
went through the various levels, did code injection, and went that way. But a lot of the time, it's looking for these little side routes in, side doors.
People be warned, be cautious.
I'm a firm believer that we are probably better off just shutting the whole lot down and living in caves.
I suppose on that note, I'm gonna we'll finish up and I'll go back to my cave. But thanks for coming on, Jimmy. It was good to get your perspective, mate, into what's happening in the world at the moment. It'd be good to get you back on again in a few months. It seems like every time I open up the BBC, there's 100 different articles about some company being hacked. So good to get your perspective on what's happening.
Yeah, more than happy to come back
as well. Cool. Thank you, mate. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks to
Sure.
everybody for watching. Make sure that you're subscribing, following, etc., on Spotify for new episodes almost daily. This has been episode 76, and thank you for watching.
Cheers. Bye.